Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your Amac podcast, Better for America. If you haven't yet done so, just hit that subscribe button so that you never miss a BFA episode. Now, today I'm thrilled. We have the honor of having a leading member of America's law enforcement community, an executive leader at the county level with a $50 million budget, 500 dedicated employees, and one of the toughest missions in the country. A top flight leader, seasoned sheriff, he's also an expert on everything from gang violence to drug trafficking to multi-jurisdictional task forces. He is what it means to be on the front lines in America's battle for public safety. He is a lead detective, award-winning investigator, and is a defender of safe streets, safe communities, and our Second Amendment. So it is our great pleasure to have with us today Sheriff Mark Lamb of Pinal County, Arizona, a state very much on the front lines in the battle against drugs, human trafficking, and illegal immigration. Sheriff, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. You look great. And you have to tell me where you're coming from. Yeah, where are you at right now?
I'm out here in our county. I'm out working. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, so we've been up and doing it for a while now. So yeah, we're always roaming around. I'm an active sheriff. I like to be out working. I don't spend a ton of time behind the desk. I try to be out, be the face of the community, and I feel like the people elected me not to sit behind a desk, but to be out and doing the job and being seen. So that's what we're doing.
Well, you know, Sheriff, it's one of the reasons why we love you. We think and just really applaud the work that you do. You come with really extraordinary experience, and you're really protecting America from within, even as we hear so much about instability abroad. So I do want to ask you, jumping right into the fray, you are in a state on America's southern border, and you see the border crisis. And AMAC leaders, we've had a chance to be down there recently ourselves. This seems to be one of the biggest crises in the nation, biggest crisis we've faced in a long time. Can you offer your perspective on the crisis created by the Biden administration decisions, which is rising illegal immigration, the risk to public health and safety posed by illegal drug and human traffickers, and Sheriff, is this as serious as it looks? And if so, what should we be doing right now?
Rebecca, that's a great question. I'll tell you, it is far more serious than it looks. It's far more serious than what the media reports that your politicians want to address. This is probably the major crisis facing our country. You know, right now they've got the American people, and not to get off track, but they've got the American people so focused on what's going on in Russia and Ukraine, and they've got Americans just, every day we're on pins and needles for the civilians in Ukraine. All the while, over the last year, there was well over 100,000 American civilians, women, children, babies, grandparents, teenagers who fell victim to fentanyl poisonings. Now, if you were to take that and reverse it and say, let's say the cartel dropped a bomb in a community. We went to a war for 20 years for what happened at the Twin Towers. Now all of a sudden we have 100,000 plus deaths a year from the poison that they're bringing into our communities, and the American people are saying nothing. And if you were to put it into perspective, if you were to drop a bomb and kill 100,000 people, America would be losing their minds right now. But because they do it, where they spread it throughout America and kill people all over this country, it seems to go unnoticed and untalked about. And so the problem is way worse.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up, that you're pointing out that the attention or the focus on what's happening at our southern border has sort of dissipated, or what really wasn't there much in mainstream media anyway. I mean, that's the sad truth. We went ahead and did a magazine feature issue, a cover story in the whole 9 yards, really to highlight what's going on, because if we don't care about our own citizens here at home, and we do not realize that it's because of these bad policy decisions that are occurring under a Biden administration, then the problem would become so big and so vast and so deep that the cost and both the lives that we lose over, in future years and decades will be enormous. So we've got to focus on it now. It's already terrible. When you tell me 100,000 people dead, and you're talking about everything from grandbabies to grandparents and men and women of all ages, all backgrounds, and all people in between. You have to realize, for anybody out there listening right now, why isn't our president talking more about this? Why doesn't he care about the very citizens that are being impacted so negatively by the wide open border? So thank you, Sheriff. In my family, we are strong law enforcement supporters, and all of our AMAC members are too. Our whole AMAC family, over 2.4 million AMAC members, are overwhelmingly in support of law enforcement, and the nation depends on our sheriffs, our local and state police and federal law enforcement, to keep us safe. In the past year and a half, we've seen something most of us have never thought that we would see, and that's a push within the Democratic Party at every level to reduce or defund law enforcement. And this is also resulting in the spike in crime and struggles to maintain morale, recruitment. Who the heck would want to be a police officer today when there's so little respect shown at the senior level of leadership in our government? So my question is, can you tell us how damaging this new push to defund police is, and why the country, including both parties, are backing this?
Rebecca, I don't want the people to think that this just came about over the last year and a half. We have seen it's like gas on a fire, but this was a fire that Obama set back in when he was the president. And that is one of the reasons I ran for sheriff, is because I didn't like the direction of the country. I could see that under his administration, they were deteriorating and undermining the rule of law. Now, since then, since this Biden administration has taken over, they've become so aggressive. They're no longer trying to hide it anymore. They clearly came out and they're saying they want to defund the police. They basically want to undermine the very strength of this country, which is the justice system, the rule of law. The founding father says, we the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice. It was one of the first things that they said. And yet so if you wanted to, what they said was in 2020, what did Joe Biden say? He wanted to reinvent America. Now, I would ask you, what your listeners, what did you think he meant by that? When I heard reinvent America, to me, that set off all the alarms in my head. And I knew that I had to go into protection mode hardcore, because what that said to me is you were going to eliminate what the America was that I knew and loved. And you're going to undermine it. And the way to do that is to undermine the rule of law. So this isn't something new, although it feels new because they've really taken it to a whole new level. This was something started many years ago. And I think under the Obama administration, they gained a lot of ground on this, of defunding the police, undermining the rule of law, and really changing the face of America. Now, over the last year and a half, we have seen that it's become much more socially acceptable because the media sources have really pushed it as well. This propaganda has been pushed by them, the mainstream media, and it does have a tremendous effect on us. It is very hard to get people to want to do this job. It's very hard to keep people in this job. And then the guys who are here don't really want to do their job. Why not? Why show up and deal with something? Why not just show up and clean up the mess after? That way I don't get sued, or that way I don't have to worry about being charged. And so this is what we're starting to see a lot of.
Yeah, it reminds me, I was in Florida last month, and I saw, went to a local urgent care clinic for an ear infection. And the doctor that I saw, we were talking a little politics, and he said, who in their right mind, Rebecca, would say defund police? He said, think about that for a minute. He said, only a bad person or a highly ignorant person, because good people understand that we need law and order, and justice should always be served. And you've got to protect. There are always going to be murderers, unfortunately. There are always going to be thieves. There are always going to be, if they're not coming to your door now and you're one of those people who thinks, oh yeah, let's reinvent the police, then you consider yourself lucky that you haven't needed to call on the police. You clearly are not aware of what their function really is. It's to protect you and to protect your property and to ensure that there is law and order. And, bad people are folks who would say defund police, but people listening, I say you ought to think about that. Like, ask yourself that question. Would you say to yourself, yes, we should defund the police? And if you say that, why? Let's have a conversation about this because the media is brainwashing people to think that all of police officers are bad. And what the administration should be doing is they should be focusing on assuring that our law enforcement community is strong and properly trained and equipped, but supported. So to me, that is another terrible crisis that we see. But thank you, Sheriff, because your leadership really is based on a lifetime of operational and community focused service. And it's so impressive. So I know that while law enforcement is certainly under pressure around the country, I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing, these disturbing increases in carjackings, homicides, other violent crimes around the country. And it seems to be following the defund police movement. So I know that you're grateful for AMAC members and supportive citizens. I do want to ask you, just going back to the drugs and how the drugs are creating these overdoses, more than 100,000 last year, as you said. They're from foreign sources often, China, Mexico, Colombia. Is that correct? These drugs,
Not
fentanyl.
really often, almost all the time.
Okay,
Nearly
good.
every piece of drug here in this country came from foreign sources, and particularly Mexico, Mexican cartels.
Okay, so then what, in your view, are we not doing at the federal level that would help turn that trend around?
Well, we're not securing the border. We know where the drugs come from. 90% come from Mexico, the southern border. There's no surprise there. And yet we fail to secure that southern border. Now you have them talking about spending billions of dollars to go over and protect Ukraine's borders. All the while, we
That's
have
right. Really
hundreds
good
of
point.
thousands of men and women every month. You know how many people came in last month? 163,000 people were apprehended. 53,000 people got away. Of those 163,000 people, how many do you think they turned back?
None. Oh,
11,670. But that's only
yeah,
because they have Title 42. And now they're
that's
talking
right.
about taking Title 42 away. So you can bet that they'll virtually send back none. Look, 11,000, that's nothing. That's less than 10% of what is coming in here. So that means out of 163,000 people, over 153,000 people who were apprehended were led into the country, and 53,000 people that we didn't even catch. So that's a net of about 200,000 people just in 1 month that came into this country. And we're seeing those numbers increasing every day. And then they bring with them these dangerous drugs like methamphetamine and fentanyl. And fentanyl, there was a school the other day, or a juvenile facility, where it got into the air system, and 4 kids had to be taken to the hospital and 3 guards. This could be a weapon of destruction used against us because it can be airborne. It can be, you don't even have to actually ingest it. Those students from West Point who took drugs, a couple of them took it. The other ones wanted to try to save them. They ended up getting it poisoned as well. And look, I have been using the term poisonings because it's overdose conjures up amongst the American people that this is some addict for 20 years who finally took
Right.
too much. And that is not the truth. It's not the story. These are 15-year-old kids who took one pill for the first time. Or this is somebody who takes a Xanax who thinks is a Xanax, and it's off the street and it has fentanyl in it. This is a cocaine user who's been using cocaine for 20 years, who uses cocaine that has been laced with fentanyl that the cartel put fentanyl in, that is being poisoned. These are poisonings. They are killing Americans. These are not overdoses in most cases. So I think it's important that we start telling it for what it is, because every day Americans are being poisoned and killed, and yet our government does nothing, and our mainstream media is complicit in it.
Yeah. I mean, it's very depressing news, but we do this show and we talk about tough topics because we think it's so important that people hear the truth. And we know our AMAC members, they want to be armed with the knowledge. They want to hear it from people like you, from leaders like you, from people who see it, because we need to be able to take this message and we need to bring this. This needs to matter when it comes time to voting. We need to know where people stand on this particular issue because we've got to save this country. Can you share with us, Sheriff, how serious is it in your county? Can you sort of paint us a picture of what you and your colleagues are dealing with?
Well, Rebecca, so that's a weird one because my county is a pass-through county. Look, the majority of the people that are being trafficked in here and the majority of the drugs that are being trafficked into through Arizona are not designed to stay in Arizona. As a matter
Mm.
of fact, the majority are designed to go throughout America. I watched a video the other day. They were recording guys as they walked by through across the border, asking them where they were going. One said California, two said Florida. None of them said Arizona or Texas. Every one of them was planning on going to inland states. Your Wisconsin's, Iowa's, Colorado, Illinois. That's where they're going. That's where the product is. If they sell drugs in your community, if people are selling drugs, you have cartel connections in your communities as well. So this is an America problem. It's not even an Arizona problem. It's not a Texas problem. It's an America problem. So what we're trying to do is we feel like we're the tip of the spear. We feel like if we don't catch it, we're like basically we're the last line of defense before it really filters throughout America. And so we work every day to try to stop these drugs, not from really getting into my community. That's part of it. Not even into Arizona. That's part of it as well. But really, we understand that this is affecting America, and we're trying to protect America and our community at the same time.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sheriff. Thank you for sharing that. Let me move into another area of importance in the country today, and that is the Second Amendment, the right of citizens to protect themselves and their families, which is really constitutionally protected, and yet it's under constant assault. Now, you're in a state where almost half of the citizens, more than 46%, own firearms, and that comes to almost 180,000 legal citizen-owned firearms. Where do you come down on this issue, the importance of the Second Amendment, and are you concerned that efforts are afoot really to limit citizen ownership rights?
Oh, absolutely. Efforts have always been afoot. But I will tell you right now, this is what I say everywhere I go. Do not give an inch on the Second Amendment. I hear Republicans oftentimes saying, well, I guess maybe we don't need a 30 round. Stop. Stop. Do not go down that road. Do not get into that conversation. If you haven't learned anything from Ukraine or Australia, these are folks that are being run roughshod over. And frankly, our government would have loved to have done the exact same thing. Our government probably would have been worse than any of these other countries, but the Second Amendment stands in their way. We're at a point in this country, we need the Second Amendment now more than ever because we are seeing tyranny across the globe. Within our own country, we're seeing tyranny, and you do not defeat tyranny without that. So
That's
let's
right.
hope that
Yeah.
that never comes to that. But the only reason they're staying in check right now is because of the Second Amendment. And what you're seeing is a push across this country where more and more states are becoming constitutional carry states, which is like what we are, which means that if you're an American and you're not a felon, you do not need a permit. You can carry a gun, open carry, concealed carry. You could come here to Arizona tomorrow, put a gun in your waistband, cover it with your shirt. It is perfectly legal as long as you're not a felon. So that's how it should be. And I can't stress enough the importance of the Second Amendment, and do not budge on the Second Amendment.
That's right. We will not. AMAC is going to certainly be sure to track all of that which is coming out of the Supreme Court. I know that we may see some wins in that area, but we'll have to watch and see. It is so important that people recognize that the bad people that have no intention of ever following the law, people that are going to do it their way, no matter what, are the folks that are getting their hands on guns, no matter what we do, no matter what laws we put in place to keep guns out of law-abiding citizens' hands. So the administration has it backwards. They don't recognize, or at least they're not verbally, and mainstream media as well is not standing up against these groups that are going after our Second Amendment rights. It's a shame. Again, another reason why we do this show, Sheriff. Go ahead.
And look no further, and I'm sorry to interrupt, look no further than the cities that are having high increases of crime. The
There
worst
you go.
cities in this country, which are liberally run cities who have the most stringent gun laws across the country, are also the cities with the most amount of crime. If that should tell you everything you need to know right there, that clearly if gun control worked, those would be the safest cities in America, but they're not. because it's
Yeah.
exactly what you said, Rebecca. Criminals are always going to have guns. Criminals don't follow the law. So if it's against the law to have a gun, they're still going to have it. The only people who will follow that law are the law abiding citizens. So look no further than the cities that are disasters right now. They have gun laws already that are very stringent, and they clearly do not work.
Yeah, thank you. Well said. Thank you, Sheriff. Your perspectives are really, really valuable. I do want to pivot to your views on gang violence because I know that you have a depth of experience there in that area, and the issue is obviously it overlaps with illegal immigration, with drug trafficking. So, given your extensive experience investigating and pursuing gang violence, do you think that we are winning this fight? Or ought to be more closely focused on gangs, as well as how open borders are contributing to gang violence and around the country. What are your thoughts there?
Well, weakness arouses evil. So anytime you become weak, your laws become weak, your rule of law starts to fall apart. It arouses those people who want to be evil. And so those people, you're gonna see more gang activity because why? They're gonna take advantage of the fact that nobody's holding them accountable. They are going to prey on the average citizens. I would expect that as you see a weak feckless administration and weak policies spreading across this country, led by the people in Washington, that you will see an increase in more and more crime. And criminals naturally gravitate together, which form gangs, especially now with the deterioration of the family. One thing you learn when you were a gang and drug detective is that the majority of the kids that find their way there are looking for some level of acceptance, even if they are and discipline for that matter. They're looking for some structure in their life that they didn't get in the home. Why?
That's right.
Because only 17% of homes in America are what we would consider a traditional family with a mother and a father in the home raising these children. So now these children are seeking acceptance outside of that, and they are finding it all too easily amongst these gangs. And we're also allowing gangs from other countries to come in here and also take advantage of the American people. So I would say we're not winning that battle. And once again, I think that battle is being lost even more so in those large cities where they have really failed to uphold the rule of law and hold people accountable. And you're only going to continue to see it.
Mhm. Thank you. I do want to ask you one last question that takes us to the national level for a moment. We hear a lot of debates about budgets in the federal government, which is now controlled by the Democratic Party. But they have struggled all year to get an agreeable appropriations bill passed, which of course affects every level of government. Do you think that a de emphasis in the budget on law enforcement and the urgency of border security, crime fighting, and really the beating of these drug threats amounts to a national security issue? I think you do. Or do you see this as politics as usual? In other words, I guess the heart of the question is, does the de emphasis by Washington, Congress, and the White House on law enforcement nationally, does that create what amounts to a national security threat for Americans?
No question. I mean, their failure that's their main job, is to protect the liberty and the peace and tranquility of the American citizens, and they are failing at that. Not only that, they're working to not do that, to not do their job. Here's the problem. Alexis de Tocqueville, who wrote Democracy in America, he was a Frenchman who the French sent to understand America and the republic that we had built in the early 1800s. And one of the things that he wrote is he said, the American republic will survive until the day that Congress realizes they can bribe the people with the people's money. And what's happened is Congress now understands that they can just bribe us. They can give us a little bit of money and we'll fall in line. And it's become a feeding frenzy for pork feeding for all of the lobbyists and the big companies and all these people across this country, and that's all they're looking out for. They're not looking out for the American people. They're looking out for those interests that they have across this country, and that doesn't include the American people. So Congress and the Senate have failed. That's why these bills are not passing, is because they have so much pork in these bills. 1,700 pages. They're trying to pass like thieves in the night, where they don't give people even a chance to read it. I listened to one congressman who said he didn't even have time to print it before the meeting actually occurred after they sent it out. That's how fast they tried to do this. Anytime you're trying to do like something like that, you know it's wrong, it's bad. The American people need to be aware of what shenanigans these guys are pulling up there, but they're failing us. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they forgot their main job, which is to protect the peace and tranquility and liberty of the American people.
Not only did they forget their main job, but they made themselves and their own power the focus of their job. So these are people too that are not going to maybe directly be impacted by some of the bad decisions because they really do live in a bubble. They are not in tune with real America and what real Americans are facing each and every day. So, we all ought to remember that when we go to the ballot box and make sure that we're voting in the right people. It's so important. Everything you're sharing with us, Sheriff, I want to thank you for your time today because we need to hear this. We need to know what it is that you're seeing. And for all that you do for America in keeping us safe, protecting our streets and getting the message out, we are grateful for you, Sheriff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really great to have you with us, and I really hope that you can come back with us again soon.
Oh,
I want
absolutely.
to, yeah, because this is really important, and a lot of this is what matters most. You and your department, they take risks really to help the rest of us stay secure, and AMAC members appreciate your commitment. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Rebecca. God bless you.
Same to you. And I want to thank each and every one of you out there listening. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet downloaded the AMAC News app, you can watch, you can listen to this show, this podcast, plus track breaking news right from your smartphone. Doesn't cost a thing. Go ahead and download the AMAC News app and get breaking news there. But please make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is your podcast, Better for America. Have a great day. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.